no qualms about when and where they begin to shed clothing. They're shedding clothing all over the palace. And hey guys, it's Quana. Welcome back to Her Real Review, where we are recapping Queen Charlotte, and we're on episode 3. This is Coronation Day, but the name of the episode is Even Days, even though it is an odd number episode. And if you have already watched this show, which you should, before you come over here so that we can talk about it and you can understand all the things that I am commentating on, then you'll know that we really like even days around these parts. But it is Coronation Day in the world of Queen Charlotte. I was really kind of confused about this because the king was already the king, and I don't know if it was like he couldn't really become the king for real, because he wasn't married. But anyway, it's Coronation Day, which is, very ironic since we just recently had the coronation of He Who Shall Not Be Named over in the British parts, that man who used to be married to Princess Diana, we'll call him that. And Brimsley is on the hunt to find the king because, taking off from last week's episode, or episode 2, not really last week's episode because it was all at one time, but y'all know what I'm trying to say here. Episode 2, Charlotte overheard some stuff that she probably didn't want to hear, and things are not going well with her and the newly consummated king relationship that she has going on. So Brimsley goes to check with his boy Reynolds, and it's like, yo, what is going on with the king? And they go down to the cellar, and the king is down in the cellar getting worked on by some shady looking doctor, and some stuff is really going on. It is feeling very sus and it's very concerning. But ultimately, they kind of try to figure out, well, Queen Charlotte is looking for him because they need to be on one accord for this coronation. And then we get a flash to young little Violet. Now, guys, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm not understanding the ages because Queen Charlotte is 17 and Violet is younger, but she's not a little girl. She's a tall girl. So I would assume that she's at least 14. So she's only 3 years younger than Queen Charlotte. But that just does not add up. I don't know if they were really thinking about the ages. And maybe she's supposed to be, but I have third graders, and she looks a lot older than my third graders. So I would say at minimum she could be 12. But that still is only a 5-year difference between Violet and Charlotte. So let me know down below in the comments if you have read the Bridgerton series and you know how old Violet Bridgerton is supposed to be. Please let me know down below in the comments, because I have not read the series, and I kind of was putting her at 55-ish, but the queen is supposed to be in her 70s in the Bridgerton timeline, and this is just not adding up at all. But what we do learn is that Violet is woke and her mom is a hot racist mess. I love that we have all the more reasons to stand and appreciate Violet, future Bridgerton, but currently last name Ledger. That's a very unusual last name. It's evoking wealth. Ledgers. Her dad is good with the books, so to speak. But yeah, so racist Karen of a mama, but Violet is woke, and we love that for her. And then we get what is to be a montage of what's meant by the even days. Well, this comes, of course, after the very beautiful coronation of King George and Queen Charlotte. We find out that they have made an agreement to copulate, as it were, on even days in order to bring about an heir. And while this seems like a hardship for them, once they get to the even day, they seem like they're all in. They're very vigorously enjoying their even days. And what a montage this is. Because for someone who is just now learning what all of this means, there are no qualms about when and where they begin to shed clothing. They're shedding clothing all over the palace. And just to be a fly on the walls and to hear the servants and the conversations they must have had about seeing the King of England and the Queen of England disrobing at all times. Now back with Lady Danbury, her husband wants her to talk to Princess Augusta about them hosting the first ball of the season. Because, even though they have this title, he's not really getting anywhere. He's not really getting the respect that he wants out in the community, out in the world. And having the first ball would solidify that. Now, we know back in the Bridgerton timeline, Lady Danbury can throw a party, okay? So we know at some point this must become successful because she definitely is like the girl to throw a good ball. But we fast forward to Lady Danbury seeing Violet at church mourning her husband still, and they have this very strange conversation where it's very clear that Violet takes it the wrong way, but Lady Danbury is like basically saying like she's envious because obviously Violet was able to marry for love and she's mourning her husband still, but she experienced love and that's something to rejoice. She, on the other hand, did not experience love, so she does not have anything to mourn. And it kind of comes out the wrong way, so when she goes about trying to make amends, she's finally able to say, I hated my husband. I hated him and I do everything to go against what he wanted his legacy to be. And you loved your husband and you do everything to uphold his legacy, but you're mourning him instead of rejoicing that you had that. And I'm envious of that. And this is kind of where we get to see that Lady Danbury, she's speaking out about the horrors of being married to this very disgusting looking old man. And then we go back to the even days, and the even days are still happening. It's a lot at times. This is very much like episode 8 of season 1 of Bridgerton, when Daphne and Simon are basically getting it on at all parts of their house. This is very much like that episode. At some point, Lady Danbury has to go to Queen Charlotte and shake her up because she's fixated on whatever is wrong with George. Why is George doing all these things? And she's like, look, I need you to stand up and be our queen. You are just focused on your king, but there's a whole world going on around you. And you're coming here to put all of us in positions of power, but it is not lasting. It's not solidified. It's all very dangerous. And we're looking to you to do something about it. And you can kind of see it startles Queen Charlotte and shakens her. But she's always so fixated on George. And it really kind of sets up the premise of her being his caretaker, how that drains her of anything else that she can focus on. I love the line that she tells her where she's like, your palace walls are too high. You have these walls up around you and you can't see the world outside and what's going on. And this really is not only a message, in my opinion, for the show, but also as it pertains to people in places of power anyway, because they're very often so busy trying to secure that power that they can't see how everyone else is being impacted. One of my favorite lines. And we have more even days happening. And ultimately, Lady Danbury has to go and ask Augusta about having the ball. Augusta's turned her down, we know, because she is a racist, hateful old biddy. And eventually she's like, I'm going to take matters in my own hands and I'm going to send out these invitations on my own. But everybody is hating on her and it doesn't seem like anybody's going to come. But the night of the ball arrives and she's all fluttered, and then they find out that the king and the queen are coming, and so arrives everyone else. And who's first to arrive but Violet's mama and daddy, Mr. and Mrs. Ledger, Lord and Lady Ledger, I guess, or the Viscount Ledger, as it were. And we get to see him not being racist and wanting to befriend the Danburys in a very sweet moment. And then finally, even though the ball's not going well, the king and queen arrive and they do the dance, and they dance to some Alicia Keys. And I always forget that they play popular music and current day music in the show until it shows up in your face, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is such a sweet song to play it to. If you have not already looked at the video that they made, that Alicia Keys made to go with this season of Queen Charlotte, please watch that. I'm going to link it down below in the description because it is breathtakingly beautiful. Some stuff is going on, y'all. Violet's daddy goes up to Lord Danbury and is like, can I ask your wife for a dance? And he dances with Lady Danbury. Now, I get it. Optics, right? Right? White man, black woman. It kind of mirrors the king and the queen. But Spidey senses are tingling that more to this is going on. And I'm like, Violet, do you have some information about your daddy and Lady Danbury that you need to share with the class? Suffice it to say, the ball is a success. And old man Danbury tries to take all the credit for it. And then poor Lady Danbury is made to suffer through a vigorous round of even days with her husband because he's so excited and happy that the ball went well. It finally happened, what we've been waiting on since episode 1. He falls down, passes out, and collapses and is dead. And she is finally free. We get to the end, and Charlotte and George are like, no more even days. They're just going to have days together. And Brimsley and Reynolds have a little moment where they get to rub hands, and it's so beautiful. Just as things seem to be going well for King George and Queen Charlotte, he has a break and he goes outside and goes to see the stars, and he sheds his clothes, and it is clear that he is in what seems to be like some kind of manic episode. And Charlotte goes and she's able to shake him out of it by saying that she is Venus, brought to life, coming to take him back inside. But we know that there's so much wrong, and we of course know where George is in the current timeline, so we know that this doesn't resolve itself. And so just when they found their moment of happiness, it all kind of seemingly falls apart. Juxtaposed to that is Charlotte in the current timeline trying to figure out, like, why haven't her daughters married? And Brimsley basically says, you've been locked in time because of what's happened with George, and your daughters couldn't leave you there. Like, they didn't want to leave you left behind. And she sends him back so he doesn't see her cry. But it's such a beautiful moment. Like, we're getting these glimpses of these beautiful moments between Brimsley and Charlotte, and it's such a caretaking and warm relationship. It's good to see that someone is able to care about Charlotte and wants to take care of her and is willing to kind of be honest with her, because she obviously doesn't have that in her real life. Such a sad ending for this episode, but lots of highlights in this episode. Definitely can't wait to see what happens now that Lady Danbury is free, and is Charlotte able to help George maintain some grasp of reality. We will talk about all of that in the next video, but let me know down below in the comments what your favorite laugh out loud moment was of this episode, and also what was your favorite, like, blushing all over moment from the episode. Let me know below in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Toodaloo.